All right, today's lesson is on the election of 1860 and the rise of Lincoln. This is important to understand because it was the election of 1860 that was the last straw for the southern states before they decided to leave the United States, form their own separate country, and that led directly to the Civil War. They saw the rise of Lincoln as the inevitable end of slavery, their beloved institution, and well, it turns out they were right, but maybe not for the reasons that they originally suspected. So let's just go through his rise and the election here. I'll let you do a lot of the learning on your own through the readings and the one YouTube video you'll watch today. So just the major points. Lincoln, after his origins, um, he would rise, become a self-made man, and end up being a representative in Congress for the state of Illinois for just a couple years. But it was enough that he was now kind of a recognizable name. He had opposition to the ideas of Manifest Destiny and to the Mexican War, so he was known. Originally a member of the Whig Party, but he joined the Republican Party when it was formed in 1854. In 1858, he would challenge Stephen Douglas for a Senate seat in Illinois. That's the upper house of Congress, so a little bit more prestigious than just a representative. Now, in that election, he became famous. First, he gave the House Divide speech, and you will be reading a little bit about that. And then he challenged Douglas to a series of debates, which really catapulted him to stardom and fame and kind of clinched the nomination for president in 1860. He would lose this race in 1858 to Douglas, but he would face Douglas again for president 2 years later, and he would beat Douglas. So in the election of 1860, you had not just two candidates. It was one of those weird elections where there were multiple people running. Lincoln was the sole Republican. He had beat out a couple other prominent Republicans for the nomination, mainly again because of his fame from the Lincoln-Douglas debates. Stephen Douglas was long suspected to be running for the Democrats as the candidate. He was the guy that kind of rose out and took the place of Clay, a Webster, a Calhoun as one of these national um, big shots. However, at this point, even the Democratic Party was just divided over how they wanted to handle the issue of slavery and preserving the Union. So Democrats in the North chose Douglas. He was a Northern senator again from Illinois. And the Democrats in the South chose John C. Breckinridge, who um, was the vice president for the previous president, James Buchanan, and seen as a pro-slavery guy. And then another third party kind of rose up, and they saw this huge division, and all they cared about wasn't slavery; it was just trying to save the Union. And they nominated a kind of a compromise candidate, John Bell from Tennessee, a border state. Um, so four different people running for this election. What we'll see happen is with two Democrats, they're going to split the vote. It's going to be a good opportunity for Lincoln to win, or maybe a third party candidate to get some good votes too. Now, um, going into this election, everybody knows what's at stake. The Union is at stake for the people in the South, especially the issue of their way of life, and slavery is at stake. So preserving the Union because of the problems of slavery is the whole point of this election. Um, Lincoln is not saying he wants to abolish slavery. Um, he does hope that it will eventually die, but he's not outrightly calling for it. At the same time, Douglas is not outrightly calling for the saving of slavery, the spread of slavery. But they all know that's what's going to happen one way or another at this point. The South is so against Lincoln and the way they perceive him as going to be the end of slavery that they only even put him on the ballot in 10 states. So 10 of the southern states don't even have Lincoln on the ballot. He can't win a single vote in those states. That's going to put him at a disadvantage, but as we'll see when we look at the map here, He was never going to win those states anyway. Breckinridge, the Southern Democrat, wins those states. Douglas only manages to win Missouri and a few votes from New Jersey in the Electoral College. Bell, the compromise candidate, does win a few of the border states, but Lincoln sweeps the North and some of the new states out west, and that's going to be enough for him to become president. He benefited from the Democrats being divided, so neither Douglas or Breckinridge could get enough votes in the North, so Lincoln is able to become 16th president. Now, immediately after the elections are held in November. In December, South Carolina, 1 month before Lincoln even is sworn in, he's not sworn in until March of 1861. South Carolina decides to leave the Union. They've always been a troublesome state. This is the home state of John C. Calhoun, who have threatened to leave the Union before, and they're the first to do it. They are followed very shortly by several other states: Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. And they declare themselves to be a new nation. In February of 1861, the Confederate States of America is formed, a separate entity from the United States, comprised of former states of the United States. They are all slave states. They want to defend their state rights, which includes the right to own slaves, being the main reason there. They also have an argument that they say that if the federal government is trying to change their laws or overstep their rights, then they have the constitutional right to secede. So that's going to be another issue. To secede means to leave the Union, leave the group as a whole. Lincoln disagrees with that. He says the states are bound together and cannot leave on their own. And that will be another reason why the Civil War is fought, why Lincoln feels that the North cannot just let the states go. Now, this is a map that will show which states end up siding with who. So if you look at it, the gray states are the southern states, the blue states are the northern states. There's a couple different shades here, though. The dark gray states are states that did not initially join the Confederacy. They were part of the Union until the fighting actually began. Once it did begin, these state legislators, they voted to join the southern states and join the Confederacy. They also left. Now, the dark blue states up here are slave states, where slavery is legal, yet they decided to not leave the Union. Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, and Delaware were already states at the start of the Civil War, and they decided, even though they had slaves, that they were going to not join the Confederacy. They're going to stay with the United States. West Virginia would be part of Virginia before the war, but during the war, this western side of Virginia that didn't own many slaves decided to to form their own state and join the Union. And it's been that way ever since. There is a state of West Virginia because they did not want to leave the Union. They did not agree with the West of Virginia about their right to slavery, and they didn't leave. So the battle stage is set. If you look at this map compared to the election map, I'm sure you can notice some similarities, right? The border states might have voted for Douglas or Bell. The South, the states that joined the Confederacy, all voted for Breckinridge, and the Union states pretty much all voted for Lincoln. You can see that similarity there. You can look at this PowerPoint. It will be posted on the folder too. To get a little deeper understanding of these things, including Lincoln's rise, you'll be watching that video on the Douglas debates and reading a little bit about the House divided speech. And then you will do a little more analysis with a link to a map and a little bit of writing and statistics on this election. You'll need to do all those things so you can complete and get full credit for the exit ticket quiz. Again, when you finish that, you can use any remaining time you have for today. Remember, budget about 45 minutes for each social studies class. Any time remaining, you can use to work on the origin story, which is due on Friday. If you have questions, come see me in office hours. Have a great day, everybody.